Thursday, April 14th. We've got Brian Caprice with Keep Trading Simple and Dan Cook here, still filling in for Todd Rich. Pretty sure everybody's getting tired of seeing my face, but we're heading into a holiday weekend here. So a lot of things to be aware of. We do have some headlines out, lots to discuss today. So before we do that, real quick, risk disclosure. Trading involves risk, whether that be at Nadex or anywhere else. You put real money in a market, you can lose that money. We're going to be talking about the markets today, looking at key levels. Please keep in mind this is for educational purposes only. It's not meant to be a buy or sell recommendation. Particularly as we head into a holiday weekend with the markets closed tomorrow. By afternoon, you can kind of see some really thinning in the liquidity in those markets. So every day it's important to manage your risk, but take extra care today. And with that, Brian, we can go ahead and kick it off because there's plenty
Sure.
to discuss.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. We saw some pound strength coming back in. If you guys have been watching the programs this week, I've mentioned a few times that for me, the pound is in a situation that it's really, really hard to go against the pound. They don't have the direct conflict with the Ukraine. They're not in the European Union, so they have that buffer. They're coming out of last year. I know Brexit is like something from the past at this point, but it was kind of like Brexit, COVID. So they were really starting from bottom, and seeing their CPI data yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday morning on Wednesday. There are 3 interest rate rises in, and they're still continuing to raise. The expectation is going to be there where people are looking at their central bank and saying, "Hey, listen, you've raised 3 times, and it's not. It's still continuing to rise. You need to do more." Only brings more strength into the pound, and really across all 3 gables of the pound. You see the pound dollar up 101, euro pound down about 30, right, 29, and then pound yen up 77. So the pound is one of those things going into the weekend. I would look for more opportunities for kind of a pullback. And again, this is the last trading day of the week. It is a longer weekend, but looking into Sunday night, I think it's important to position yourself and again do your homework, whether tonight or tomorrow. Again, with no trading tomorrow, go look at kind of where the pound is. And again, their international markets are open. It's just U.S. market, so the currency market is there. So again, kind of see where the pound starts leveling out. See where it's positioning itself for the weekend to be able to take positions next week. Dollar CAD. We're seeing that the dollar CAD is down 82. And again, we talked yesterday as well about they were raising their interest rate. They did. It was officially in. The initial response was not straight down, but that's what you have to expect with this. It's a lot of people have a hard time trading news. They wait, they see the number, and then they react to it. When the reality is you got to kind of see where the market moves ahead of time. Last night, I just wanted to review this as well. Last night with the Australian data, it actually came in as a little bit of a disappointment. It didn't change as much as what they thought it was going to change. The interesting thing about this one, and again, this goes back to news trading. If you watch the LC dollar, I guess let me go back to it real quick. I'll just show you guys on the chart real fast. We drew a line right here, and we said we'd love for it to be down here. You can see right after we talked yesterday morning, price got thrown up higher. And what it did is it came back up to an area where, again, could we have drawn, a turning point here? Yeah, absolutely. There's an area of sellers right here. And it drove it all day into that level right before their news. And then you can see the automatic retreat back down again. So this is one of the fun things that I like about news trading is that the data doesn't always necessarily matter. Look to see what the market tells you to do. It had a huge rally up very, very fast. And what the market did is it pre-positioned itself for the news. And then what happened is the news came in and boom, it pushed its way all the way back down and we're below the 1 to 3. And at this point, I would say it probably comes back down to 74. The 74 number is right there, which is kind of where your profit target would be for this one. So, gotta love, news trading is one of those things where, there's so many different opinions and people will tell you it's good. People will tell you it's bad. You should never do it. Get out of the market, wait and watch and see. But the reality is, the big money out there kind of already has an idea of what they're going to do. And they have so much money, even if it doesn't do what they want it to do, they have enough money that they can make it do what it wants to do. And it's amazing how much fear and greed is stacked in the news trading. And again, this was an easy setup. It drove it all the way up to a high level. And again, it doesn't matter if we're high or low. There's fundamental reasons why we liked it down here. But did I know it was going to be a disappointment yesterday? No, I thought it was actually going to be a positive piece. But what did the market tell us yesterday at 9 o'clock in the morning? It drove it higher into an area of selling already. And then all of a sudden, bam, we got a disappointing number in there and it rolls back down exactly like it should have. Regardless of whether there was news or not, it should have rolled right off of that level. And it did. And then the news is what the catalyst was to really make the pin, the nail in the coffin. So interesting how it works out. Looking into this morning so far, and again, I apologize, my nose is still stuffed up. We got some data out of the ECB. It's not moving a lot, but they're talking about kind of really winding things down. I was hoping for a little bit stronger of a piece, and you can see that they're going to bring the end of, may bring forward the end of its bond buying as inflation spirals. Obviously, their excuse for the Ukraine situation is a valid one, right? But what they're starting to see is the inflation is getting too out of control, even with that scenario. So again, talking about the economic environment has not become easy for the ECB. And what they mean by that is we don't exactly know what's happening with the Ukraine, but unfortunately, it was kind of like, oh, Ukraine's the main thing, but now it's like inflation is getting up there, and it's kind of like almost on even par with it. I do believe that they will start moving earlier than expected. They originally said end of the summer. I think it's going to have to come beforehand. Germany, in particular, the inflation is starting to run wild there, and they're seeing a reduction of resources, everything else, and energy rationing and everything else. Stacked with inflation, it's a really, really bad combination. So they really got to get it under control before it's too late. Retail sales was kind of mixed. I guess that this is good. The reason I say that is because, remember, inflation is supposedly not as bad with the core, right? And people are buying more of that. And the overall retail sales, they're buying less than the forecast, but that's where all the inflation is stacked into. So what that shows me is people are buying less food and gas and more of all the other things. So it's kind of a split number. It doesn't really tell us anything today. But one thing that you do have to point out is the revision to what, both of them had upward revisions before. So what that shows me is this is a double in core retail sales. That means people are still spending money right now. People have not cut back their spending. And the overall retail sales number, it is an adjustment. It was, it's quite a large adjustment. They said that the actual was a 0.3 last time. It actually was a 0.8. It was actually double than what they expected. So yes, the 0.5 is lower than the 0.6, but understand they just made a revision of 0.5 higher. So it's kind of still a positive number. So overall, I would say both of these are more or less positive, but it goes back to good is bad right now, because if retail sales is still cruising, I mean, we had the adjustment here. It was 0.2 last time. They adjusted it to 0.6, and it was a green. So it was kind of this is definitely a double, which is a big for core. So people are spending money, The interesting thing about that is spending money at 40-year high inflation means that people are willing for inflation to go higher. They haven't started cutting back their spending habits, which is another drop in the hat of you need to raise it more, right? People haven't stopped. They're spending more. You got to slow it down, right, before it gets to be too bad. Because remember, the higher inflation, if you look at the kind of the socioeconomic spectrum, the higher inflation goes, the line where it's hurting people, for the bottom people, it gets worse very, very fast. But the line where it's really starting to hurt people, we're starting to approach up into where it's going to make a very, very big deal. So we're already starting to see it. You're seeing supply shortages. We saw food costs. We saw the PPI out of the roof. So retail sales numbers are pretty decent. We will see consumer sentiment and investor speaking. I don't think there's anything big in there. And then obviously tomorrow we have Empire State Manufacturing, but there's not going to be a ton of, not really necessarily a ton of trade. So markets wise, one other headline I think is worthy of bringing up. Dan and I were talking about this before. 4 hours ago, Russia made a comment that if Sweden and Finland are able to join NATO, that the talk of nuclear-free talk is done. Like the Baltic will, sorry, we're not talking about it. I get it. It kind of makes sense. Again, Russia is NATO is designed to stop Russia. If it expands Russia as everything there, everything has an equal and opposite reaction. 2 more join. He's got to, again, they got to do it in lockstep. So it makes complete sense. The good thing about this, if you could say there's a good thing, the VIX didn't move. Okay. Typically when you see Russia and nuclear in the same statement, it has every reason in the world to jump. It didn't jump. So that's a great thing. We're seeing them, the VIX kind of ratchet down a little bit with retail sales and everything else in. That's a great thing. I would say there's not really a major reason why for the VIX to kind of creep higher today. With it being down right now, the indices are a little bit in the red. They're a little bit confused. And this is kind of where we were at. From yesterday, we talked about 44.58 being a decent turning point. It was snug up right there between the 61.8. Unfortunately, missed it by a little bit. It got to 44.55, and I said 44.58, and then turned and rolled over. And that was mostly in the European session. Now, depending on if we stay positive or negative today, if we stay negative, we got to make it through the open. Right now, I would say that it is probably more kind of the negative kind of sentiment on this one. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but the retail trader hasn't reacted to that retail sales. Most likely what this is again, retail sales were great. they really need to start raising interest rates faster and harder. I would say look for this 44.21 as being a drop point, and then having it come down really all the way to 4400. I don't think that's out of the ordinary for today. It's been kind of the basing channel that we've been kind of shooting back to, and it's not even the full bottom. So on a technical based level, I would say that this one looks like it's going to be short today. Now NQ actually rolled off a level that we talked about yesterday. We'd done that easy high to low draw on the fibs, and we talked about it being an area where, hey, listen, we had this big push up, and there were sellers confirming this level, and you can see right here at about 2 o'clock in the morning, we hit that level, and now we've rolled off of it. So had you attended the sessions yesterday, this is absolutely a position that you were in. I think at this point, I think you're out as well. Nope, not yet. I need to go just a little bit farther, and again, right into an area of buyers. So again, also negative. Now, I do think that NQ has the ability to turn and roll and end in the green today. Reason why is, if you guys haven't seen it, not this one right here, right here. Elon is now buying Twitter. It is a 30% increase, or 30. Yeah, it's a 30% increase over the current price of what it was before he started buying. So yesterday they tried to go after him because he made 2 purchases. He refused the seat on the board because if you're on the board, you can't buy it, I guess. So basically, it's like, you can sue me because I bought it in 2 days, but I'm trying to buy the whole company right now. All those people that were supposed to be suing me should be thanking me now because I just gave them a 38% increase if they were buying it. So here it is. Elon may take over Twitter, and that would get very, very interesting because Elon has some very interesting tweets. Having the control that he does, I think it's a natural space for him. With everything that this guy does, imagine what he could do with Twitter. I mean, I'm not a Twitter person. Like, people don't need to know when I'm eating and things like that. I never fully understood Twitter. I know it's a voicing ground for some people, but it would be a very interesting sale. Like, the guy's trying to revolutionize the e-market. He's trying to be the space expert, and now he's going to go over and take social media communication over. So it's interesting. I like it, but I do feel that because of this going in there, talking about the 54, I do think that Tesla will have right now it's not doing much. There was immediate pop, and then it kind of pulled back a little bit. I do think as people see this, they are definitely the people that are big Elon fans. I think that they will start getting, I think they will start jumping into Tesla as being a big target and be like, hey, listen, Elon's stepping in there. Everything this guy does, he accomplishes. So, for me, I don't own Tesla, but I do believe that when Elon gets into something, crazy or not, I do think he's got a couple screws loose. I think he'll make this company better than it is right now and revolutionize it in some way. I'm interested to see if he uses Twitter to kind of start going head to head with Facebook. It actually wouldn't surprise me at this point if he tries to take the market back over.
I think a key term you used there, Brian, was he has fans. He literally has rabid fans, almost like a rock star, that you just don't see really by the head of any other company. It drives a lot of momentum, and I don't really want to call it hysteria, but a lot of excitement.
Yeah. I mean, everybody hates Bezos, even though Bezos is an extremely smart guy. He's like the villain, right? Where Elon, he's the rebel, he's the Robin Hood. Everybody loves him, But so it'll be interesting. And Apple's also holding firm. I mean, again, coming back into Tesla switching, and kind of getting into the Twitter sphere as well. It should be driving technology. I mean, these are people that are going to be looking at technology today. So right now the NQ is red. It is bouncing off. We'll see if we get that full profit target, but taken from fibs from the last kind of major turning point to here, you can see that we just crossed through the 23. Can we drive enough down to grab this 50? And could that be our launching point? I think this is, it's an old area that we've talked about in the past. There were sellers there, and it bounced off of it, and then used that same level as kind of that Harry Potter confirmation long. That happened to be right around the 50 as well. So I think really, if this gets to its full completion, I think we got to look at 14,118-ish area around there as a potential, popping point today. And again, more names, more money, more. I mean, again, Twitter for such a long time has been in a battle and losing. I think Elon could be the guy to turn it around. So I think NQ has the ability to go positive today, even though everything right now is officially in the negative. Now, YM ended up going up and actually grabbing the 34,582. It's a level we talked about. It is up, just sneaking right below the 78.6. And again, it was a confirmed level. We had the confirmation right here. I don't know if you guys can see that the wick came up. But it's still hovering right around the 34,500. It's like a broken record. We keep talking about this 3,500. I will say right now, we do have a level of basing, and again, it's right underneath the 34,500, and we do kind of have a big push again. Of all of them today, I think looking at YM, although technically it's the strongest right now on a purely technical analysis basis, I think that this has the most potential to go down today. Retail sales is great. You got to love the retail sales aspect of it, but again, it's that good is bad right now. They're going to have to raise. People are still spending. Inflation is still increasing, and eventually, it's going to take a major toll. And remember, politics rears its ugly head and everything right now. The higher inflation goes, the more votes are lost from the party that's currently in control. So it's one of those things that there is going to be major political things getting involved at this point. So I do think that there is a potential for a short in here today. Probably break over around 34, 445. I want to see what it does at the open today. And again, dropping it down to a 15-minute. You can see that again, lots of basing. It's hit it, based in there and kind of breached it. And there's not really anything over here. I'm like, I love that level. It looks great, right? So I do feel a little bit more negative about the Dow today. And the Russell, kind of the same thing. It's actually already started to break through a little bit. I guess you could kind of pick this level here as being kind of the bottom. You could have drawn one up top here, but either way, I mean, I guess if you use the top one here, we've already kind of had a bit of a test, but we do have this one piece here. I would say anywhere really in this level probably is where, again, rising interest rates are going to hurt the Russell worse than any of the other indices. And if you look to see what we had that big rally up and that kind of bounce, right? I think it has the ability to kind of fall back down again. And even if you take just the point from here to here, fib-wise, the 23, it hit it once and faltered. Its next target for fib traders, they're not looking at this until it comes down to the 50, and that's quite a big drop to the downside. If you're using this last level of basing, I think, you're looking at 1 to 3 puts you right there, just past the 50, but before the 61.8. So, unfortunately, I don't think we have many buyers coming into the market until really kind of that yellow level, and that's at the very, very bottom of the short there. So, like I said, I do think there's still some negativity to come in. The way that it's setting up, it looks like it could be a good reversal morning at 10:30 today. Other things that are kind of helping, oil, I would say, is not necessarily helping. I'll leave that there, but from where we were yesterday with the oil inventory report, it was a 23% pullback right into a level of basing. Again, the 35 and 1 would not have worked yesterday. It was not a great setup, but if you did go down there and look for levels, it did spike all the way down and grab this 23.6, and then obviously took off to the top side. So, at this point, you got to move these. I think I mentioned it earlier in the week. We're Thursday. This is the closing day today. So, as of right now, from where we were Monday morning, here I said, long for the week, and is up $10.75 was to its peak. It's up $10.26 right now. So we talked about those week-long positions, and it's basically been one direction all week. So, I know I'm gonna call it out right now. My one student's gonna be yelling for weekly commodity call spreads. Just gotta make sure that we know that that's what we want. So for the long term, for all of them. But I think it's justified to be back up here. Natural gas. I mentioned yesterday. I'm like, can we break? Can we hit 7 by the end of the week? And we hit 7 by the end of the week. It actually broke through. We got up to 17.11 before pulling back a little bit. So, yeah, it's like I said. I hate natural gas up at 7, especially $7.10. But it's one of those hard ones right now with everything going on. Can you really go against it right now? Do you really want to say, hey, listen, that's it. The top is in. I know it's seasonal, but again, there's so many things involved right now on the geopolitical spectrum. Again, I don't think Russia's going to be launching nuclear weapons, but if they decide to just suddenly turn the valve on Europe to really stick it to Europe, I think that's. I honestly, I think that's going to be in the playbook. I think they're just waiting for that audible to be called. I still think this one has the ability to go higher. And I mentioned yesterday too, gold and silver. I expected it to be down, and we kind of drew this. I did this from my group, saying, "Hey, listen, this could be the top. This could be the top. Where do we see it?" And again, yesterday morning we were sitting right here, and we said, "Hey, listen, this could be the base. This could be the base." And we had the first push, and then in the overnight it came back up again. And again, silver also catapulted back to the downside. Yesterday morning we were sitting over here, and again, I think it's completely justified that these two are both heading to the downside. And again, I think interest rates are going to rise. Bitcoin ended up punching its way back up again, so you're seeing the cryptos go a little bit higher. TLT, again, still maintaining this low. I'm actually shocked TLT is not a little bit lower at this point. But you can see just, the the way that the bond market, and again, the bond market is huge. They're just seeing the interest rates and crushing these yields to the downside. So overall, it's an interesting day. I mean, again, holiday weekend. Dollar is obviously rallying right now from 745. Probably from what we're hearing in the euro. That's most likely why we're seeing so much strength in it. But for the most part, we're not really seeing a ton of dollar movement. I mean, even though it's super strong and it's rallying back, the pound dollar is still at a daily ATR right now to the top side. So again, it's strength versus strength, and everything else across the board is again a little bit of weakness. A lot of it's matching up on a technical basis, but again, like I said, I think 10:30 today will be a pretty interesting time to check the charts. There you go. Consumer spending. We just got it here. There you go. We're seeing some early signs that consumers are shifting their spending patterns. So here's kind of a dialed in look at the retail sales. I expect that pattern to continue this year. Consumers shifting more to services. Yeah. So not necessarily surprised. We'll see. So interesting day. With that said, have a great weekend. And again, we'll catch you guys early next week.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brian. As a reminder, it is a holiday weekend, so we will not be broadcasting tomorrow. Todd is scheduled to be back on Monday. So, Brian, it's been a pleasure watching your work for the last week and a half. We'll remind everybody Monday is the tax deadline. So make sure if you have not, you do get your filings in. Other than that, have a great weekend. Brian, thank you, and catch you soon.
Yep, absolutely.